So the police kick your door in. What happens from here?
So I get a phone call, and under normal circumstances, if this person calls me, I'm gonna pick up. But I'm taking a nap. I've been up all night. I've been partying, and they call again. I kind of ignore it, and all of a sudden I hear, boom, you follow police, and all of a sudden, the only thing that I'm thinking about is my family, and I hear flashbangs, or basically like concussion grenades going off. And I'm thinking like, hold on, wait, like my 3-year-old child is in the house. Like you throwing a whole concussion grenade, and she's in here. And so at that point, it hits me like, oh, wait, I'm back here. So I'm yelling like, hey, I'm in the back. You know, my family knows nothing about anything I got going on. Whatever you find is mine. You know, I'm being a man about it because I wanted no harm to come to her or my child concerning any of the activities that I had going on.
So what exactly did they find in the house?
So they found paraphernalia. They did find baggies in which, of course, that you could use for anything, but they assumed, or their assumption was that it was used for the sale of cocaine. They did find a .6, and a lot of times when you say .6, if people aren't familiar with anything in the drug realm, a packet, my lawyer said it this way in court, that a packet of Sweet and Low or Splenda is a 1 gram packet. I had less or a little over half of a packet of Sweet and Low. So there was not a large amount of drugs found. But because I had obtained that felony back in 2012 from an arrest from 2010, they charged me, and I eventually pled guilty to felon in possession of a firearm.
Okay. And you said they found the scales?
They found scales, anything paraphernalia that they could use. One scale actually wasn't even open. They opened the package up. I actually showed you a picture of actually what they found. I don't know if that picture will be uploaded to this, but I mean, however, if it can be, of course, I'm not ashamed of that either.
Yeah.
But there was 2 firearms in the house. And at the time, you know, I had a 30-06 in which I was getting, you know, the sights set in so that I could do some hunting. Because in the state of Alabama, and this is a real misconceived notion, a lot of times people assume that because I don't have a violent felony, which in the state of Alabama, if you're not a violent felon, you can possess a shotgun on the state level.
Yes.
But now that the federal government has started mandating and saying, okay, every gun charge we're picking up, they're able to come back and supersede what the state says and says, well, federal guidelines say you can't have it. And so that's why I was sentenced at the time that I was. I actually spoke with a friend of mine a few days ago, and he was like, well, I've had my things expunged. And I said, well, you can expunge it in the state. You can also use that as far as applying for a job, that it's sealed, and that job may not be able to see it. I say, but as it refers to a firearm, if the feds come in and you have a firearm, you're going to prison.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, there's a lot of guidelines, a lot of gray areas. So it's one of those situations where it's like mama says, you can go out, you can play. And daddy said, what did I say to him? And so the federal government is like your daddy.
Right.
So yeah, the state said, yeah, Willie, you can have that shotgun. The judge under the state's guidelines said, hey, yeah, you can't charge him with the shotgun. But guess what the federal government did? That's exactly what I played out to. I played out to a Remington 1187, which is a 12 gauge shotgun.
All right, so from here you go to the county jail, and what happens from here?
So I go to the federal holding in Montgomery, Alabama, in the Montgomery County Jail. And in federal holding, they have a section that's specifically set aside for federal inmates. And so anybody who's awaiting trial or awaiting sentencing on the federal level are housed in this particular area. and there's 3 separate pods, and you go in and you meet guys, and everybody's under suspicion. Everybody's assumed to be a snitch. Everybody's assumed to want to jump on your paperwork. So your lawyers advise you not to talk too much about your case. And there are different reasons behind that, and I won't get into everything about that, but there are specific reasons behind it, because either a person could jump on your case for the bad and say that, hey, I bought drugs from him too. He lived in such and such and such and such, if you give them too much information about you. So it's just one of those things where you, it's a different world. And so I realized at that point that I had gone a little too far.
Okay. So in this holding facility, is this when your mom passes away?
Yes, this is when and so I was put in federal holding on May the 10th of 2018. I was out for an entire year from the 2017 portion of this, and I ended up going to the county jail in 2018, May of 2018, and from that point I was held there. Let me back up and tell the whole truth. I actually received the bond. I came home for one day, and at the time I was driving without proper paperwork. I did not have my license. My license was revoked at the time, and I had just been wheeling and dealing, doing exactly what I wanted to do. And this is another thing that has taken a toll on everything, because at that point I was remanded due to me violating portions of my bond. I received a bond. I'm not one of those people who has extended criminal history. Mm-hmm. So because I don't have the criminal history that a lot of people may possess, I was given a bond. And even with being given that bond, it was revoked due to me violating the conditions of that bond. Right. And so I was housed there, and my mom had a medical procedure done in which did not agree with her body. Right. And I lost my mom September 17th of 2018. And at that point, my lawyer agreed to take me to my mom's funeral. So I had to endure what some would say was the worst day of my life, losing my mom. But God had given me a different type of strength at that time. I actually came in singing at my mom's celebration of life. I actually did the eulogy at my mom's celebration of life. And what I said, and I actually was speaking to myself, sometimes you gotta lose to win. And I went off the whole thing, what Fantasia said in her song. But as I began to think about it, that's what had to happen with me as far as losing time away from my family, as far as losing, because I ended up losing my marriage as well during this bid. I lost my father as well during this time. Actually, after I was sentenced and went off to prison in April 15th of 2020, during COVID. We're on COVID lockdown, we're confined to the cells, and we're only given an opportunity to shower every 3 days. Every 72 hours we were given an opportunity to shower. And I get they knocked on the door and said, hey, we need you to go to the chapel. And I already knew what it was. My father had been going through some illnesses, probably just lovesick. He had lost the love of his life, and his inability to continue to fight and go on with life. And he eventually died April 15th of 2020. And so I had to go through all of that behind the wall. I had to go through all of that in the midst of people who care nothing about God, what you got going on, and during a time in which the world itself was in turmoil. COVID-19 did a lot to a lot of people, and just being incarcerated during that time was even worse. And so having to deal with that was one of the turning points where I was just like, man, it's too much. It's too much. And at that point, I wanted to take my own life. I didn't want to be in the world anymore. and I actually said over the phone that I really just want to dive off one of these tiers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what prompted psychology to contact me and to ensure that I was okay. And in saying that, you know, a lot of times people won't express what they think mentally or what they're going through from a mental standpoint. And mental health is very, very important in this day and age. And so we have to be mindful of how we think, how we feel. And if we don't feel what we need to feel, we need to be able to be at liberty or feel free enough to go and speak to somebody about it that could possibly help us. So that's my little plug for psychology. That's my plug for mental health, because I used to hear the saying, it's okay not to be okay. And it never meant enough to me until having to go through and lose the things that I did lose. So, but that was very detrimental to me.
Yeah, man, that's tough, losing one parent, not only one parent, but just both parents while you're away.
Most definitely.
You know, condolences, man. You know, just to back up a little bit, how much time were you sentenced to?
So I was sentenced to, and that's the difference between the feds and the state. The fed sentences you to months. So I was sentenced to 96 months in prison, which is the equivalent of 8 years. And I was not, so I went in 2018 and I was supposed to be out in 2025. Thanks to Donald Trump and, of course, Obama for actually initiating it, the First Step Act, but Donald Trump was the one who actually signed it. But in him signing the First Step Act said that any inmate who was nonviolent and programming could earn a year off of their sentence. So I earned a year off of my sentence. While being there, I worked in the education department, and in the education department, I assisted in over 150 guys in obtaining their GED. And so that was a big accomplishment for me, especially being a person who wasn't so fond of school and things of that nature myself. Just being in that position made me want to become more knowledgeable, to apply what was already in me. And so I thank God for that. And so that's one of the things that I do now. I try to help anybody that I can that's struggling in any subject or trying to obtain that GED. If you're trying to get it, hit me up. Let me know.
And you said education is actually one of the things that sustained you, you know, going through losing both of your parents.
Most definitely.
Right.
It was an outlet because I could go, and even when I felt empty, I would go pour into somebody else. And seeing the joy that they got from learning and obtaining the skills that it took to pass their GED test gave me strength enough to keep going. And so I thank God for education at Edgefield Federal Correctional Institution.
Gotcha.
You can call